morning. Happily, I am here applying oil after oil. And so I have already applied Sacred Mountain and will give myself another drop, another application. I love being able to just pick them up and apply whatever I choose. And I decided today I'm choosing to have more joy in my life. So I'm going to apply another drop of joy. And I'm getting low on this. Ooh, I got 2, I got 3. So I'm going to have extra joy today. Now breathing it in, applying it over my entire field, just gently, gently going over your field with the intent of joy. Did you awaken with joy this morning? If you did, congratulations. You can still have more joy. So I'm going to just begin by wiping off my hands a little bit because I have so much joy on my hands, and making sure that I don't drop the bowl. Just by the singing bowl, just for a little bit to set the energy. Let's see, it looks like it's very, very close to 11 o'clock. So I will begin. And welcome to all of you. There are many new people who may be joining us on the replay or live. And I sometimes forget because we get charging along and not everyone has the same background. So I will attempt to go back and pick up some pieces so that all of you who are new will know what we're doing. And of course, you can download your app, and I'm sure Stephen or someone will put the app, the link to get your free app. And let's all take a nice deep breath. And I've been holding on to one of my favorite little wands that I've had for a little over a year, the Fluorite crystal, to remind me to remain in my sacred space. And this morning, what I thought I would be talking about, we're talking about automatic negative thought syndrome. Do you have ants? Well, ants, usually most of us are not excited about having ants in our house or ants crawling on us. So this kind of made me smile. And I like to smile. I like things that I can remember. So thinking about automatic negative thoughts syndrome. Well, where do they come from? We all have negative thoughts from time to time. I'm not immune, and I don't think there's anyone out there who is immune to this. So where do they come from? Well, they come from blocks at some level. Would you agree? And of course, the very first glyph in rainbow healing is the forgiveness glyph. This is anchored by geranium, essential oil, and this will actually begin clearing the blocks at all levels. So I thought I would really be talking about clearing blocks, about release, 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 which is all about the 7th glyph, which is the freedom glyph, which is anchored by the lemon essential oil, I really thought I would be talking all about that letting go. And when I got up this morning, well, actually, I guess it started a couple of days ago because it didn't get into my conscious. It was in the subconscious. But several days ago, I began selecting this card, the air element. And I have selected it over and over and over again. I sometimes get another card along with it, but this is the one that has been coming up. And when I, with my intent, in my conscious intent, as I was selecting a card for this morning, it was this air element. So I said, okay, I guess that's what it is. And the air element is all about clarity, drawing clarity. So it seems like Clarity Blend would be a very nice start for that. So I have been applying a lot of Clarity Blend, breathing it in. Any of you who do not have clarity, one of the major ingredients of this blend is marjoram. And if you have the raindrop oils, you have that single oil, or you may just have received that oil as a gift, as a promotion, and not known what to do with it. Well, one of the things is to think better, for the brain to work better. Now, what other oils might we use for our better mental, coming in mentally? Well, my next thought of a single oil is rosemary. And of course, the blends, we all know that brain power sounds like a really good thing to have better clarity. Of course, as we begin getting into the brain, we may be missing out on some of the connection that is required for us. So the first and foremost thing is to ground, to breathe. Whenever we have blocks of any sort, that's an indication that we have lost our connection with the source, our creator, our connection with the earth, that complete solidarity that comes from being connected above and below. So the first step is always, whenever we recognize that we are beginning to have negative thoughts come in, perhaps that first thing would be take a breath. It's too simple, isn't it? As we breathe, first of all, we're stopping. We're stopping what we were doing before. We're bringing in, and that is what the air element is all about. The air element is a flow of new ideas, new energies, bringing in those things and pushing out the things that are no longer serving us. So it's that flow of energy. And how often do we really choose to hold on to something that is worked in the past, that is not currently working? So just because it's worked in the past to get us to this point does not mean that that's the optimal way of doing things, or the optimal energy, or the optimal messages that are coming in now. Everything is about change, and it's not about what someone else is doing. It's about what we are doing. So as we get these negative thoughts, it's really, hey, I go through this too. I'm not immune, as I said. It's all about stopping, breaking that energetic train, stepping back and taking a closer look. A closer look is what's triggering you. What is that real trigger? Rumi said that for us to recognize that unlearning is the highest form of learning. Okay? Unlearning is the highest form of learning. Wow. We all think we're pouring in things all the time, but we forget. That's part of unlearning, to forget the way we have done things in the past and to bring in that new knowledge, that new information. And what's perfect for someone else may not be perfect for you. So this air element is anchored by the essential oils of lavender and jasmine. If you have those oils, you might choose to use them often. I think probably most of us have lavender. So take a breath of it. Let's use some lavender right now and just intend. Lavender anchors that energy of our authentic energy signature, our perfect energy flow. And each of us has a different energy flow. It's just like fingerprints. We all have our own unique energy flow, and as we allow other things in, it affects our energy. Everything out here, everything is about frequency, and frequencies just pass through, and it's of what we allow to affect us. So going back into these trigger situations when we suddenly find ourselves thinking negative thoughts, is it something we're bringing from the past that it's time to look at and let go? Is it something about not allowing extraneous things into our field? Now, what do you do first thing when you wake up in the morning? For years and years and years, those of you who came to my classes, my physical classes way back for the last 20 years, know that I did not schedule classes in the mornings. I won't say I did not, I rarely scheduled classes in the mornings because my mornings were for me to get ready for the day, for me to really pay attention, to make sure I was connected, and to make certain that I was clear. Because when we are interacting with others, if we are not clear, what we get back is not going to necessarily be clear, and we may be passing along unsavory things to others. So I spent my mornings. Now, I must say, what is the first thing you do? I'm not asking you to write it, but I'll tell you what I find that I do frequently, and it's really requiring a special effort on my part to change this, because the first thing I do, I don't wear a watch, so what am I doing? I pick up my phone to see what time it is, and there are lots and lots of messages on there, notifications. So the temptation is there to answer those messages. I tell myself, and this is one of these little things that we do to tell ourselves it's okay, because I tell myself, well, I'm going to select my rainbow healing cards on my app. That's why I'm holding my phone. But what happens in reality, I may select the cards instead of sitting down with focus and intent, applying the oils, making certain that I'm grounded, I start answering messages. Does this sound familiar to any of you? And what happens is that we may allow extraneous things into our field that are not going to support us in any way. I am reminded, I remember years ago, I read something about an egg, to think about an egg. If pressure comes in from the outside and that shell, that boundary, cracks under external pressure, what happens? The egg, there is death. The egg is no longer a viable life form. But what happens when the pressure comes from the inside and that egg is cracked, that shell is cracked from the inside? Brand new life begins. So as we are thinking about this, it may be very important for us to really pay attention to the way that we are bringing things in or pushing things out. Are we pushing out new life, new energy, positive energy? Or are we pulling in, allowing ourselves to be broken by whatever energy is not compatible for us? And there's so much, everything is energy. It's floating around everywhere. No one is immune to the energies. And it's always, as Stephen always tells me over and over again, it's never if you feel that someone else is doing something to you. It's never the person. It's whatever is flowing through that person at that time, or whatever is flowing through the internet. We all have access. You're on the internet right now, and I'm very grateful that you are. But it's very important for us to pay attention. And as we are focusing inward, then that's the other part of this air element, because that's the divine union. We're integrating. That is the frequency of jasmine essential oil, which I'm going to apply right now. One of my very favorites that goes on my body every day, multiple times. We are able to intend to integrate those things that are important for our journey at this particular moment. And we are beginning to look inward. That is the clue. That is the key to it all. Looking inward. So as the negative thoughts begin coming to us, step back. Take a breath. Make sure you're grounded, that you're connected with the source, that you're grounded to the earth. And examine what the trigger might be. Words that came to me were things such as conflict, guilt, past experiences. Now, some words trigger one person and not another. And for instance, when Stephen and I were developing the 30-day transformation for Rainbow Healing Cards, he truly wanted to call this a test, the 30-day test, because it's a test period before we can move on. And when you're in school, you take a test, and if you pass the test, you move on to the next level. If you do not pass the test, I started to use the word fail, which is a trigger for a lot of people in every aspect. If you do not pass the test, then you stay where you are, or maybe slide a little bit farther back. So, having been a teacher, I know that the word test is a big, big trigger for a lot of people. The minute you say the word test, it's like the mind goes blank. It's like, oh, fear sets in. And when fear sets in, what else happens? Blocks. Blocks at all levels. And it can be a mental block. It can be a physical block, such as a symptom. It can be an emotional or an emotional block. So when fear sets in, then we have lost whatever. So, by the way, we finally decided, we finally concurred that the word practice would work. Because a practice is something we do every day. It never really ends. There is a period where our initial practice, and then we can add more things. But this is all part of each one of us. We each have trigger words. Do you know what some of the triggers are for you for getting in those negative feelings? Now, a lot of people, one of the first things I thought about was children. You know, the terrible twos, if you like to call it that. I never liked calling it the terrible twos, but many people find it traumatic because a 2-year-old will often just say, no, whatever you say to them, no. And I find myself doing that too. Do any of you do that? I find myself, Stephen gets very upset with me because he will say something, he will throw out ideas, and I am very busy with a lot of different projects all the time, and I get very focused on what I'm thinking about in any given moment because I've got a lot of things lined up as to how it's going to be done, and something that is not required at that particular point that may be very important for a later point, but is not relevant at that particular point to me, may be very relevant to him. I just immediately, my brain just says, say no, just like a 2-year-old. And the fact is that if we step back and take a breath and examine, why am I saying no? Now that's a trigger word for him. Hi, Stevie. Because he likes to be told the reason, not why, or ask about the reason. So our wording with others, the wording that others use with us may make a tremendous difference in the responses. So as you are beginning to come up with recognize these negative thoughts, these negative thoughts that just happen automatically, step back, take a breath, get that connection clear. Breathe in an oil if you have one handy, or if you have them all over you, as I do at all times. Just breathe them in and examine what it is within you that is creating this negative thought. And as we begin to understand those things, we can eliminate, we can neutralize those blocks. And as we neutralize block after block, it may be a long process, but it will bring about greater harmony in our entire life, in every aspect of our lives. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Whenever a negative thought comes into your brain, think about the egg. Are you an egg that is going to burst forth with new life, or will you allow something external to come in and crack your egg? Have a beautiful, beautiful week filled with lots and lots of observations, new ideas, bringing in all of those beautiful new thoughts and ideas. And I'll see you next Sunday.